and other remote countries in the region. Wells is finding that some of Dave's DNA, along with much of the rest of the world's, sprung from right here.
Central Asia is a fascinating part of the world. It really is kind of a melting pot. It's really the meeting point between East and West. You can really see this almost written in the faces of the people. They do seem to be very mixed, and in some cases it's very difficult to say, well, this person looks East Asian or this person looks European. They're a combination of all of that and more.
If we look back about 40,000 years, we see the source of all these mixes were Dave's ancestors. When they first followed the grasslands to this region from the Middle East, climate was shifting between cold and relatively warmer periods. Through it all, these high mountain peaks provided a steady and vital resource: water. During good times, people could venture away from their stable water supply and onto the grasslands to hunt. During the bad, they'd retreat to their mountain base. For thousands of years, climate shifted from cold to warm and back again. Dave's ancestors responded.
They begin to find techniques for hunting these animals, projectiles instead of thrusting spears. Spears you can throw at these animals.
They stitched together clothing and built shelters. Quite literally, they toughened up.
They had a lot of things to adapt to. It was quite a harsh existence in some ways, very different from what they were used to in Africa. And so they developed cultural advances that allowed them to survive.
The changes were more than technological and cultural. They were physical. Under these harsh conditions, sunlight was hard to come by, which means people were not only toughening up, they were lightening up as well.
Our African ancestors would have had relatively dark skin. Lots of sunlight, it's a very tropical place. You need some way of protecting your skin from the sun.
Dark skin acts as a natural sunblock in the tropics, but in the tundra of Central Asia, where sunlight is scarce, it's a liability. People need to let in all the sun they can to produce bone-building vitamin D.
As we moved into northern latitudes, and in particular probably into the region of Central Asia, we would have needed to lose some of that pigmentation. And so probably our skin started to become much lighter around that time, roughly 40,000 years ago.
A little back here. There you go. Good.
Like all of our other physical differences, the genetic changes responsible for our varying shades of color are minuscule. Just a handful of mutations out of the more than 3 billion letters in the human genome form the foundation for humanity's entire notion of race. Tangible proof of something Dave and his girlfriend Michelle already know.
Race is just, it doesn't really mean much. I mean, people are different, but I don't base anything on a person's race.
For all the problems race has caused, our differences are literally not more than skin deep. Genetically speaking, race does not exist. Without those minuscule changes, though, people might never have survived in these northern latitudes. And that means we might never have carried on to populate the rest of the world. Around 35,000 years ago, an Ice Age-induced dry spell caused the Central Asian grasslands to radiate outwards. People tracked animals deeper into the ancient steppe lands and expanded further and further from their base. Some people would turn right towards East Asia and the Americas. And some, like Dave Reed's ancestors, would turn left and take the M173 towards Europe. Leaving us with one obvious question. If Dave's markers trace back to this early European trek,
Good.
why doesn't he look European? As far as he knows, Dave is African American through and through. When he gets his results, he'll learn that his Y chromosome, at least, isn't. Somewhere down the line, likely during slavery, one of his great-great-greats was a European who fathered children with a woman of African descent. It turns out this blurring of bloodlines wasn't uncommon. About 35% of African American men carry similar European lineages.
It doesn't, define him as a white person or a black person. These are genetic markers that simply tell us about part of your ancestry. So the rest of his genome might be completely African.
And look over at me when you're doing that. Good.
That European Y chromosome, in fact, makes up just a tiny fraction of Dave's ancestry, which we can see by tracing it back to its source.
Oh, yeah. One more lap. You can do it. You can do it. Good.
If we rewind through all the people who've led to Dave since the slavery era, back 200 years, let's say, 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, back about 10 generations, we find over 1,024 ancestors. A single one of them passed along Dave's Y chromosome linked to Europe. The rest could well have been from Ghana, as Dave's grandmother told him, or Greece for all we know. However small his European link, though, it's enough to connect Dave Reed to George Dellis, a quintessential Greek who's lived in New York almost all his life.
Hi, ladies. Hey. Hi, ladies. You better.
Recently retired, George was district manager for this immigrant neighborhood for more than 30 years.
See, now you had a Greek girl, you have a Dominican guy.
His constituents have converged here from all over the world, yet it seems there's hardly anyone George doesn't know.
How are you doing? What's happening? We're all immigrants. Who understands an immigrant better than an immigrant? Take myself, I'm an immigrant.
And like most immigrants, George works hard to keep his roots alive.
The first time I went to Greece in '79, my grandfather had passed away just before that. So I didn't get a chance to talk to him about his parents. But my father knew his parents, and he told me basically, they were farmers. My grandfather, my mother's father, was a Cretan. He was from the island of Crete. And he was a very quiet guy. He was a baker.
If we look back with our DNA time machines, some 2,000 generations beyond these farmers and bakers, we see that around 35,000 years ago, George's ancient ancestors were among the very first to enter Europe.
I think that we're pure Europeans, that after Africa, my ancestors went up through the Middle East and settled in Europe. That's what I believe we'll find when I get my results.
George will soon discover that his ancestors